Welcome to another video from McFatter Tech Musser. If you like these videos, please click subscribe.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so this is going to be our lab for Chapter 5, 70-740, Chapter 5, which is our Advanced Storage Solutions. We already discussed this. Our DC1 is up and running. It's our domain controller is the first server that's on. It's the last server we ever turn off. We've also started server SA1. We've started server DM1 and server DM2. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open and log into server SA1, and we're going to make sure that, just as that note right here says, there must be 3 unallocated disks installed. So I'm going to go back over here to Hyper-V Manager. I'm going to double click and get logged into server SA1. And how am I going to see whether I've got unallocated disks? I'm going to simply right click on my start button and go to disk management. So here I can see I've got test volume. So I've got disks that are on. I've got one disk that's online. So I need to get rid of that. I don't need test vol anymore. So I'm going to delete that volume. It's unallocated now. The disks are online. They're unallocated, but they're online, so we should be fine there. So we're going to be working with storage spaces. I'm going to close disk management, and I'm going to click File and Storage Services. And then, as we can see in step 2, I'm going to select Storage Pools. We can see our 3 disks that are available to us. They're down here in the bottom right, listed under physical disks. And if you give me one moment. Oh, right. Okay, we're back. Okay, so we've got our unallocated disks, and those unallocated disks we call primordial disks. They're those disks that we can use to create our server pool. That's our primordial pool. So if we continue on, see the same view in the screenshot in our document. We're going to right click on the primordial pool, and we're going to select new storage pool. And if I'm going to move this a little bit more to the right, there we go. We're going to click next, and then we're going to simply name it Pool 1. We're going to click next. And now we're going to check all 3 of the boxes. We're going to include all 3 of those disks. We see that when we do this, it shows us the total amount of storage, 39.9 gigabytes. We're going to click next. Now, this is the same place where we looked at in the slides, where we could specify if we wanted to, one of these could be a hot spare. We could say how manually we want to have allocation. We're going to leave them set as automatic. And now we're going to click next. We can see our synopsis of what the settings are going to be. We're going to click create. And just that quickly, our storage pool has been created. We can click close. And now, instead of showing the primordial pool, we have our storage pool. If we right click our start button and go to disk management, those disks don't exist anymore. The 3 unallocated disks do not appear in disk management any longer. They're being managed by File and Storage Services. I'm going to select our storage pool, Pool 1. I'm going to right click on it and say New Virtual Disk. This is how we allocate storage in storage services. We're going to build that new virtual disk within Pool 1. I'm going to click OK. On our wizard screen, I'm going to click Next. And I'm going to name this vDisk1. Now, before we click Next, let's answer our first question. Why can we not select the Create Storage tiers on this virtual disk? Why is that option not available to us?
Because you need a mix of the SSD and hard disk drive.
Yes, look at the bottom of the wizard screen. There's an information bubble there. To use storage tiers, the storage pool requires a minimum of one automatically allocated physical disk that's solid state and one physical disk that's a hard disk drive. Without that, that option's grayed out. So why can't you create storage tiers? I'm going to simply answer it by saying because one each of SSD and HDD do not exist. It's just that simple. More to the point, we don't have a solid state. If we had a solid state that we could throw into the mix, it would be available to us. If we had a solid state that we had included in that pool. That's really all we would have had to do, yes.
I don't see that question in mine.
You don't?
No.
Okay, let me pause the video for a second. Okay, so right below and right below here, they also tell us the checkbox for creating storage tiers is grayed out because an SSD isn't part of the pool. We're going to click Next. Here again, the enclosure awareness windows option, it's grayed out. And they tell us, since we don't have storage spaces certified enclosure attached to the server. And again, down at the bottom of our window, there's an blue information bubble. To use enclosure awareness, your server must have at least 3 enclosures, and the physical disk in each enclosure must have automatic allocation. So, what's it used for? It's to help protect your data if an entire enclosure fails. It tells us right there. Enclosure awareness stores copies of your data on separate storage enclosures, helping to protect your data if an enclosure fails. So, what's our answer? It helps to protect your data if an entire enclosure fails. Now the question is, where am I? Oh, yeah, I don't want to. Sorry, I need to open up the document that I just downloaded because I'm overwriting my original. Give me 1 second while I do this. Okay. We can click Next. Now we select the storage layout. How is the storage going to be allocated? The default option is Mirror. If we look at Mirror, data is striped across physical disks, creating 2 or 3 copies of your data. It increases reliability. It creates a RAID 1. It's used to protect against a single disk failure. If we select Parity, it's going to be striped across more than that. If we want to protect against single disk failures with Parity, that's RAID 5, we have to have at least 3 disks. We can, however, protect against 2 disk failure by having at least 7 disks. So there are ways to increase your resiliency. And in a simple, data is striped across. It maximizes through capacity and throughput. In other words, you can write faster, you can read faster, but reliability is not there. It doesn't protect you from a single disk failure. We're going to select mirror and click next. Now we can specify, do we want to directly allocate using a fixed provisioning type? That's going to say if we create a 10 gigabit virtual disk, it's going to allocate 10 gigabits. Or we can do thin provisioning. This is the concept of dynamically expanding. We're going to select thin and click next. In the size, we're going to specify 10 for gigabytes and click next. Before we click create, we're going to take a screenshot and paste it in. Okay, so once we've got that screenshot, just go ahead and in your virtual machine, click create. Doesn't take very long, just takes a few moments. Now you'll notice at the bottom of that wizard screen, it's checked to create a volume when this wizard closed. We're going to uncheck that. We've created a virtual disk, but we're not going to format it. So we're going to uncheck create a volume when this wizard closed. Then we're going to click close. So here's our new virtual disk. We've got a virtual disk, but it's not provisioned. We have not formatted it. We didn't create a volume on it. So at this point, if I go back into disk management, look what appears here. There's our unallocated virtual disk. So we took disks that were unallocated, create a storage pool out of it, and now we can create smaller virtual disks and have them appear as unallocated space that we can manipulate. In File and Storage Services, I'm going to right-click the vDisk1 and I'm going to select Properties. You can see that there's a General tab. It shows us all the different information about it. We can select Health. It shows us the health of the mirror. We can view details as far as how it's being used, access, allocated, size, friendly name, all the different attributes associated with this virtual disk. We can go ahead and we click Cancel. We're going to continue right into Activity 2, cleaning up storage spaces. So we could allocate this however we want it. Maybe we've used it, we no longer need it. We're going to delete the storage space. We're going to delete the virtual disk. We're going to delete the storage pool. So our server manager is open. We're still logged in. We're in storage pools. We're still in the same view, so we're already on step 2. I'm going to right-click on vDisk1, and I'm going to select Delete Virtual Disk. It says, hey, if you do this, it's going to be gone. I'm going to click Yes. It's going to remove the virtual disk. If I went back into Disk Manager, it wouldn't exist anymore. In the storage pool, I'm going to right click pool 1 and select delete for storage pool. Yes, I will want to. Click OK. The delete wizard runs, it's gone. So that's manipulating, creating storage pools through file and storage services, creating virtual disk through file and storage services. Now let's do the same thing through PowerShell. I'm going to click the Start button. I'm going to right click on Windows PowerShell, and I'm going to say More, Pin to Taskbar, so just a little bit easier for me to get to. And if I run PowerShell, it takes a few moments, you'll notice that it starts as administrator. Does that for us. Let me see if I can move this window over a little bit, give ourselves a little bit more room so that you can see what I'm doing. Now, in step number 2, we're going to add all available physical disks to the pool with the allocation type of automatic. The same thing we did when we created a pool. So I'm going to first create a variable. And I do that by doing this $sign. So I'm going to type in a $sign and then pool disks. I'm going to do a space equals space. And I'm going to do a commandlet. Get physical disk dash space dash can pool. Oops, there it filled it in for me. $sign true. So if there's a physical disk that can be a part of a pool, it's unallocated, it's going to get that. I'm going to press enter. Just returns back to the prompt. It doesn't do anything for us. Basically what it did was it's going to read any allocated, unallocated disk, and it's going to allow us to create our pool with it. I'm going to type our third command, new dash storage pool, a space, dash FRIE tab, friend, that's dash friendly name, another space. We're going to, it says, what's that friendly name? The friendly name is going to be pool 1, another space. Now we're going to do a dash physical disks. This is where we tell what the disks are that we want to be part of the pool. Another space. And now we add our variable. The variable is going to list the disk for us instead of us having to list each disk individually. So if I do a $sign and then pool disks, another space, dash storage subsystems, storage subsystem friendly name. It's a long one. That's why we want to use the tab complete, so you don't have to type all that. What are the chances of you doing a typo when you're doing that? Pretty good. The storage subsystem friendly name is Windows, and we're gonna it's a wild card. See, it's Windows asterisk in quotes. That means anything following Windows that is acceptable. So I'm going to do quote. You'll notice the quotes at the very end of my screen. I'm just going to keep typing Windows asterisk and a closing quote. It wraps around, it continues going, and press enter. It's creating the pool for me. And there it is. There's our pool 1. Everybody get that? Still typing? When you're typing that long PowerShell command, just keep typing because it's going to wrap around and it's going to accept it. So we've created our storage pool. We've got a storage pool that we can now allocate space to. We're going to create a new volume. This is step 4. So I'm going to use the new -vol command, new volume, tab complete. And where are we going to create it? Where are we going to create it from? From the storage pool. So I'm going to do storage pool friendly name, pool 1. Now I'm going to give the friendly name. What's going to be the friendly name of the volume that I want to create? I'm just going to call it new vol. I'm going to do another -drive letter. We're going to assign a drive letter at the same time of letter V. We're going to specify the provisioning type. Is it going to be fixed or is it going to be thin? We're going to do a -provisioning type, a space, thin, another space, and I'm not so sure. I think that that's supposed to have a dash. Let's see if resiliency setting. Yes, there should be a dash. There's a typo there. After thin, there should be a space, -resiliency setting name. Another space. This is where we specify, is it going to be parity? Is it going to be a mirror? Is it going to be simple? In this case, we're going to do parity. Another space, another option, size. And the size is going to be 10 GB. If you've got all that, go ahead and press enter. Creating our virtual disk for us. And there we are. There's our 10 gigabit new disk with the label new vol drive letter V. If I come into, right there it is, look, this PC. As far as this computer is concerned, it's got another drive attached to it now. Let's take a screenshot showing our PowerShell, and we're going to paste that in below step 4. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at some information. We're going to do a get-virtual disk commandlet. And simply press enter. There we can see a little different perspective. We can see that that new vol is a virtual disk. It's running with parity. So it created, what it actually did was it created 3 10-disk volumes to create that. It's only 10 gig in size, but it's using parity, which meant it used at least 3 disks. Let's make another one, or let's change the view of that. That's showing us a lot of information there. We're going to repeat that same command. I'm just going to press the up arrow one time. I'm going to do a space, and I'm going to say send that, and I'm going to use the command FL and press enter. Format list, FL. There's shortcut commands you can use. This shows us everything there is about that. There's a lot of information. Maybe we don't want to see all the information. Maybe we only want to see specific information. Let's repeat that command, except this time we're going to do a -health status of healthy. and press enter. Now this shows us any virtual disk that the health status is healthy. If we had 10 disks and only a certain number were healthy, only they would show. We could also do unhealthy, we could do unknown. Now, just the same way as in the GUI we right-clicked and delete the virtual disk and deleted the pool, we can do the same thing through PowerShell. Let's do a remove dash virtual disk, a space, and we specify the volume label that we want to remove. New vol. Press enter. It says, hey, you sure you want to get rid of this? Anything that's on there is going to be gone. You're going to say yes. Why yes? And there it's removing the virtual disk new vol. It's gone. Let's do the same thing for the storage pool. Remove dash storage pool, a space. We specify the pool that we want to remove. Pool 1. Are you sure? Yes, I do. Or yes, I am. The default is yes. If I simply press enter, it'll accept that. I like to press the letter corresponding to the action just as a simple check. Yes, I do want to. So yes. And it's gone. Now let's verify that those disks were returned to the pool. We're going to do a get physical disk. This is going to list disks, except we're going to do a dash can pool with a $true. That's going to show us disks that are available to be pulled. Get dash physical disk space can pull $true. And there's our 3 disks back available to create a storage pool with. That's our next screenshot. So get that screenshot and let's paste that into our document. At this point, this is our last activity with the server SA1 for now. We can go ahead, we can right click on it, and we can tell it to shut down. Now, we're making pretty good time. Let's go ahead, we're going to do activity 5-4. This is working with iSCSI targets and iSCSI virtual disks. So we're going to install the iSCSI target server role. We're going to do this through PowerShell. Server DC1 is already running. Server DM1 is already running. We're going to log in to DM1. I'm going to double click on server DM1. I'm going to go ahead and get logged into it. And here again, if PowerShell is not pinned to my taskbar, I'm going to do that because PowerShell is something you're going to use all the time. So I'm going to click Start. I'm going to right-click PowerShell, More, Pin to Taskbar. So I'm going to go ahead, while Server Manager is loading, I'm going to tell PowerShell to start. And I'll make that font a little bit larger, make it a little bit easier to see. So we're going to use, oops, take you away there. Okay, we're going to use PowerShell to install our roles. So now that's not run as administrator. Remember that as a member server, when we do things, we were logged in as local administrator, and it automatically ran PowerShell as administrator. We want to make sure that we're running this as administrator. So I'm going to right-click my PowerShell icon on my taskbar, and I'm going to select Run as Administrator. We're logged in with permissions that allow us to do that. Should take just a few moments. There we are, and we can see on the title bar it does say Administrator when PowerShell. I'm going to type the command install Windows feature. A space. What are we going to do? fs-iSCSI target -server, comma. You can install more than one role at a time, more than one feature at a time. iSCSI target -VSS -VDS and press enter. Same process as if we were doing it in the GUI, except we don't have to. Click, click, next, drop downs, click, next, click, all that. We can just do it as a single command line. Collected all our data, and there we're done. It's installed. Now let's go ahead and we're going to sign in to, we're going to switch over to our Hyper-V Manager. We're going to open up DM2 and sign into that. Remember, DM2 is core. We're prompted to type in a password, right? I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to hit escape again. Well, it should have allowed me to. This is joined to our domain, right? It's not letting me switch. Anybody else not able to switch user? Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to pause the video. We're going to take a look at why. Okay, so I'm here where it says hit escape to switch users, and it wasn't doing that. It was hitting escape, it wouldn't do it. Close the logon UI, and you'll notice it comes back to a press Control-Delete. Go up to the upper left and use the emulation button for that. And now hit escape and escape. Now we've got that. So now we're going to select other user. And you can see it says sign into iSCSI 2016. Well, that'll work because we're going to use the sadmin account. We're not going to use administrator. If we typed in administrator, it would try to default to the local account. We're going to do sadmin, tab, and our password. And press enter. There we are. We're logged in, and you can see right there it says users/sadmin. So we're logged in as our domain administrator. I'm going to type in PowerShell, and that's going to spawn PowerShell. And there we are. We can see that even though we're still in a command window, it's prefixed with PS in capitals. We know that we're in PowerShell. I'm going to type in start service MSI SCSI. That's going to start the iSCSI Initiator. So, start dash service MSI SCSI and type and press enter. That tells that service to start. Every copy of Windows has the iSCSI Initiator already running or already part of it. All we have to do is tell the service to start. That's our client portion. I'm going to go back over to DM1. On DM1, we're going to go to, I'm going to minimize PowerShell, and I'm going to go to File and Storage Services. If I refresh my server manager, I should see iSCSI after the refresh. After the refresh. After it finishes refreshing. Anybody else is taking this long? Okay, while this is sitting here, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, and just as soon as I hit pause, my server manager refresh finished, and there's iSCSI. So I'm going to select iSCSI. Here again, I'm not sure why this is running so slow. Let me just take a quick look in Hyper-V Manager. And it's pulling a lot of RAM for whatever reason. So we're going to select, we're not going to go through storage pools. We're not creating a storage pool and such. We're going to use the iSCSI wizard to create a virtual disk. So I'm just going to simply click on the link for the wizard. And we can see right here, it says where do we want to create it. If we have multiple volumes, we can specify where we want to create this iSCSI virtual disk. It's a virtual disk. So before we do anything, let's take a look at our question. With the default settings, in which folder will the iSCSI virtual disk be saved? Take a look at that screen. Who can give me the answer? It's on your screen. iSCSI virtual disk, right? So when we create that first iSCSI virtual disk, that folder is going to be created for us. It doesn't exist yet. So in this case, C:/iSCSI virtual disk. We're going to click next, and now we need to name it. We're going to call it vdisk1. Click next. For size, here again, we're going to use that 10 gigabits. We're going to see that it's already selected for dynamically expanding. That's what we want. This allows us to over-allocate storage as well, if we so desire. You notice we could do a differencing disk. We could reference a different disk. We could, maybe there's for some reason we want to have everybody or multiple servers get access to copies of the same information. We could have a previously formatted disk that we create parent-child relationships with and do it this way. Or we could do fixed size. We're just going to simply leave dynamically expanding, a size of 10 gigabits, and we're going to click next. Now, we have not created any targets yet, so we need to create a new target. We're going to click next, and we're going to name that target. We're going to just call it new iSCSI target. That's creative. We'll click next. Let's see, it doesn't like Oh, I typed in the wrong one. I'm supposed to type in server DM1 target. So, sorry, I typed in the wrong thing. Server DM1 target. It does not want to see any white space. It doesn't want to see any spaces in that name. We're going to click next. Yeah, I like that a lot better. Now we have to tell it how are we going to control the connections to it. Who's allowed to access this? I'm going to click the Add button. And you can see there's a query Initiator computer for ID option. Can't use this if you're letting an older system connect to it. We're going to type in, we're going to specify the fully qualified domain name that we're going to allow that connection. Server dm2.mcsa2016.local. We're going to click OK. You can also specify by IP address. If I were to do add and come down here to enter a value for the target, I could change this to a DNS name, an IP address. I could specify a MAC address. Different ways that you can control who's going to get access. We've got our Initiator qualified name. We can see it right there. We're going to click Next. Okay, let me pause the video. Okay, good, got that. Okay, so on our access servers, we've listed the server that's allowed to connect. We click Next. Now we're on our authentication page. So if we want to enable authentication, what would probably be the best? We could use CHAP. We could use reverse CHAP. We could use either one of those. So to provide further security, we can use CHAP or reverse CHAP. CHAP is used to authenticate the initiator connection, the client that's connecting. Reverse CHAP allows the initiator to authenticate the target. We could do both. We're not going to do either right now. We're going to be using our Active Directory for our authentication. That's why we don't need to enable this. We're going to click Next. We can confirm our selections. Before we click Create, I want everyone to take a screenshot and paste this in. So a new screenshot and paste into our document. Once you've got that screenshot, go ahead and click Create. We now have a 10 gig disk that we can connect to from a different server. We're going to connect to that from DM2. So we've completed activity 5.4. This is 5.5. We're going to do that, and at that point I'm going to end the video and allow you to complete everything else on your own. So our DC1 is running, our DM1 is running, our DM2 is running, we're logged on. We're going to switch over to DM2, and we're going to create our iSCSI. We're going to configure our iSCSI initiator. So we're going to type in a new dash iSCSI target portal, a space, dash target portal address, another space, server DM1 and press enter. So this is what our target is going to be. Remember, we're the client. This is the target that we want to connect to. We're telling it what server is going to have that. If you see the same thing as in the document after you press enter, you're in good shape. I do. I'm going to type in a get-iSCSI target command and press enter. There we can see that connection that we're allowed to make. Now, we're going to repeat that last command. I'm going to press the up arrow one time, and I'm going to put a space, and I'm going to say send the results of that to connect-iSCSI target. So I'm going to pipe it to connect-iSCSI target and press enter. And there we are. If we can see what's available to us. I can do a get-iSCSI session space. If I do that by itself, I see information very similar to what I just connected to, right? If I take that same command and pipe it to a get disk, there's my 10 gig virtual disk that I can connect to. Do that command, get-iSCSI session, space pipe, space get-disk, and that's going to be our next screenshot. So I'm going to take my screenshot and paste that in. So there are our disks that are available. You know what? We're already here. I've got a couple more minutes. Let's go ahead and let's finish this out. So we can see our disks. If I simply type a get-disk command, we can see not only the 3 disks that we created in our virtual machine, but we can also see the disk that we just got the attachment to. You'll notice that its disk number is the 4th disk. Look down that list. There's our 20, 15, and 10 that we created as part of our virtual machine. Our operating system's on disk 0. The 3 disks that we attached to the VM ourselves is disk 1, disk 2, disk 3. The connection that we just created is disk 4. So we're going to bring that online. Now in our instructions, they're talking about it being disk 5. Ours is disk 4. Does yours show as disk 4? Raise your hand if your new connection is disk 4. Do you have disk 4 or disk 5? I'm going to pause the video and take a look at everybody's screen. Okay, all back on the same page. So now we're going to make sure we all have verified disk number 4 is our disk. We want to initialize it. So I'm going to do a command of set-disk space number 4 with a dash is offline with a $sign false. So we're saying Is it offline? No, we don't want it to be offline. False. If I repeat the previous command of get disk, it's now online. Now let's initialize that disk. Initialize disk. Which one? Number 4. Press enter. Now the disk is initialized. If I repeat the previous command to get disk, now I can see it's formatted with GUID partition table, GPT. I'm going to take a screenshot, paste that in for our next screenshot. Let's see. Yep, we're just about done here. So now I'm going to jump back over to DM1. In iSCSI, if I refresh this, I can now see my disk is connected. We're ready to use that storage. We could create volumes, we could do whatever. Okay, so at this point I'm going to end the video. I'll post it for anybody that wants to view it. You're at step 5-6, so you've got 5-6, which is removing the target and virtual disk. You've got then configuring data deduplication to accomplish. Those are the only two that we're not going to be able to accomplish together in the lab. So go ahead and complete those. As I said, I'm going to end the video at this point, and I'll post it online for those students that aren't here.